We are in Kufi Dal Amud Aleph, the Mishnah, Baruch Hashem, and the Shiur Lo Nishmas of Imoiri Menachem Ben Akiva, Ule Iloi Nishmas. Oh wow, Lo Nishmas of Moshe Rus Bas Shalom. Le Refuas So Esther Bas Gittel. Esther Fuma Bas Shoshana Malka Besoch Shachol Yisrael. Says the heilige Mishnah, beautiful Mishnah. Not lu moichsin es chamoy kufi daled. What did I say? Kufi daled amud aleph. Not lu moichsin es chamoy. Let's say the bad kind of tax collectors, the ones that are not supposed to collect the tax, they're either self-appointed or they take too much. And they took his donkey. Not lu moichsin es chamoy. They took his donkey and in their graciousness, they're very magnanimous and gave him another donkey instead. Maybe his was better. They were nice to him. They gave him one donkey from their loot, from their chamoirim, which are all really halachically stolen. So now he got from a different person, the Ganev, he got stolen goods. Not listim his ksusoi. They took away his ksus, his garment, his jacket, his cloak. V'nosnu lo ksus acheres. They gave him a different ksus. They gave him a different garment. So the garments are his. The stolen items that he got from a different person, from a Ganev, are his. Why? Because the bailim are miyash, which means we assume that once in the hands of either the government white-collar thieves or the real thieves, whichever one. By the way, both are mentioned. We said moichsin and also listim. I don't know if I stressed that enough. There are two types of ganovim here, but both of them are so tough and so bad that we assume, and that's important to remember for the Gemara, we assume that the person, the owner, right away gave up on it. It was meyash from it, even if I don't know that he gave up, I assume he did. And therefore there was what? There was Yiush in the hands of the moicher, in the hands of the, of the Ganev already. Now that it switched hands between the Ganev and the owner, says Rashi, there's Shinui Reshus. That's Shinui Reshus. That's Shittas Rashi. Maybe later we'll talk about Tosfos. Rashi says Yiush Shinui Reshus. It's good, although it's not mutar lechatchila to to cooperate with the Ganev and get the goods and buy it from him. Here he had no choice. The listim came to him and he just got the donkey that they stole from him. They switched it, they swapped it against his will. So you can't blame him for doing lifnei iver or cooperating with the Ganev or using a stolen good. To use a stolen good, once it's in my hand, it's not stolen. Why? Yiush v'shinui reshus. And yet, mitzad cooperating, I didn't cooperate. They came to me with guns blazing. So now the next case, amatzil minano. Oh, by the way, here we're talking all of a sudden about hashavas aveda. We're talking here matzil minano. A person saw the item in the river and he was about to drown, and he got the item out of the hands of the river, so to speak, the hands of the river, So he saved it from the river, what? The item that belonged to someone else. Or he saved it. What a courageous guy. He saved the item from the soldiers. I don't mean the nice Zahal people. I mean the guys, the bad soldiers that come and steal stuff. They raid the town. Or he salvaged it from robbers. He fought the robbers. What a valiant guy. And he got it from them. Now the item is in his hands. If we know that the bailim were miyash, meaning we did not assume that the bailim were miyash like we said before. We say that if you have two edim who came and they told you, we know, or you heard the person from the far end of the other side of the river or the other side of the listim's camp. You heard the person actually said, "Oh, vailel chesron kis, I gave up on the item." Then he can take it. Why? Because it was in the hands of the listim, and that was Yiush. Because I know there was Yiush. I heard the Yiush actually taking place. And then what? And then there was Shinui Reshus. Why Shinui Reshus? It's in my hands. It's in my hands now, not in anybody else's hands. So now they belong to the finder or the courageous, brave guy that got it from the listim. I just want to point out, it's interesting that we also mentioned Nohor. Nohor, as I said before, is about a Shavas Aveda. There's no person involved. The river is not a human being. But we all know the rule, I think we know the rule, that by Aveda, all you have to have is what? Yiush. once the Aveda was lost from the person, it got into a state of like, no man's land. And as long as it's looking for it, it's his. Once it's Yiush, then the finder can keep it. Finder, keeper, once it was Yiush, and can keep it. But that's not the main issue now. Just wanted to point out the Nohor is a different story here. V'chen, and similarly so, Nechil shel dvorim. There's a swarm of bees, a whole swarm of bees that came into someone's field, and he wants them. They produce honey. They're good. They're worth money. Then im nisyashu harei ilu shaloi. Im nisyashu, if those bees, the person who owns them, I know was miyash. I heard the original beekeeper, bee owner, screaming, and I could hear all the way from his field, "Oh, woe to me for the loss of money. I gave up on those bees, their queen, and all of them. They all left my beehive. Oy, oy, oy. Then it's mine." The Gemara asks the question, what's the chiddush, right? We already know that anything else that the person is miyash, then I can keep it. Why do we have to talk about the bees and the birds? Why do you have to talk about it? What's the chiddush? That will be mentioned in the Gemara. By the way, bees and birds have something in common, not what you have from your American education. The bees and the birds have something completely different, and that is the ownership over bees and birds is never actually complete. It's only with the Rabbanon, and that's the chiddush, and we'll talk about it later. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah. In other words, bees and birds, they both tend to fly. And therefore, when you own them, you know that you'll never really own them. They can always run away. That will be discussed later. Omer Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. Quick, yeah. Ne'emenes isha cotton, a woman or a cotton, a minor, are believed loimer to say, Mikan yotzon chil zeh. We saw that swarm of bees coming from so-and-so's field, which means, let's say you own a field and you're actually thinking of starting to deal with bees, with apiary, and you want your beehive, and look, Hashem loves you, like Ari Goldwag's song, and look, the swarm of bees comes right into your field, but you know what's going on over here? Oy, 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 oy. There's a person running after the bees, saying, these are my bees, these are mine, and they just flew into your place. And I will tell him, who said it's yours? Prove it. Right now they're by me. Prove that they belong to you. Maybe also stam a thief. So, and he says, yeah, they came from me. How do you know? The woman, even a woman or a cotton, even people who usually are not believed to be Eidim, women and Ktanim cannot be Eidim, but for this matter, they can be Eidim. Bam, 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 bam. We will all remain in suspense to know why, later on, although I did hint you, I gave you a hint for the answer, but we'll discuss it later in the Gemara. Continues the Mishnah. A person is allowed to walk and tread over his friend's field, to save his swarm. If I know these are my swarm of bees, and let's say the other person doesn't even argue, I'm walking all over his tomatoes and also his tomatoes, both, and I walk all over them in order to get the nechil. I get the swarm of bees, and on my way, without bad intention, I sometimes maybe destroy something, the inizik, and if I destroyed stuff, I destroyed the agricultural goods of the other guy, then you have to pay what you were damaged the other person, which means you cannot tell me that just because you have tomatoes growing, therefore your field is a no entry zone, and I cannot take my item, my bees that are in your possession, and we all know it, I have the right to go ahead and take them because there's no other way. If I trampled over a few tomatoes, I'll pay you for them. Why does that work that way? We'll see later, and we will see later, and we saw it's one of the Tekonos of Yoshua. Aval continues the Mishnah, but lo yakutz et soichoi al menas liten esodomim. What's soichoi? It's a big branch, a big branch from the tree. All the bees are sitting there right now. Maybe they're starting the beehive or something. Now, I can't take them one by one. Of course, they're going to run away, right? So they will, fly away, actually, right? Yeah, they'll fly away running. So then I want to cut very, very slowly without them noticing. I want to cut the entire branch and then slowly take them to my place. You're not allowed to do that. To mamish make a nezik biyadayim. To mamish go ahead and cut with your saw to cut the branch of your friend, that's already too much. Make an ezek be a dime. Not that I'm walking and he may or may not be mazik. I'm mamish cutting off the tree of my friend. That I have no permission to do. That's what the Bava Kama says. Rabbi Shmuel b'no shel Birchan ben Boyko omer. He argues, Rabbi Shmuel, and he says, "Af koitzetz v'nosen esadomim." He says, "No, since these are my bees, I'm allowed to cut his branch and take the bees with me." Why is that? We'll see in the Gemara. Now we're going to deal with the first part of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, and this is a very difficult item in Iyun. I don't know how deep I'm going to go with you guys. We'll see how it's going to work out. But let's start reading. What did we say at the very beginning of the Mishnah? Reminder, the very, very first part of the Mishnah said as follows. If the Ganovim, the Gazlonim, the Moichsim stole from who? Someone, Mr. Someone Reuven Ploini, and I assume he was Miyash, right? The Yiush took place in the hands of the Gazlan. What else is necessary for me to be the legal owner of the Chamor? Tell me. Yes, which is defined as Shinui Reshus. Shinui Reshus. That's how Rashi explained it. Not everyone agrees with Rashi, but that's a classical way. There was Yiush plus Shinui. After Yiush and Shinui, yeah, the world's yours. Then you can do whatever you want. You can keep the Chamor. Says the Gemara, a Tana, a Brisa that argues on what we just said. The Brisa that we're going to mention now argues on our Mishnah. What does the Brisa say? Im notal machzir lebayim rishonim. You took the donkey. You cannot keep it. You have to give it to the original owner. You have to find out who's the original owner, who was the victim of these soldiers, the victim of those tax collectors, and give it back to him, which means you are not the legal owner. Why not? Kasova, because he believes Yiush kedi loikani. Yiush alone is not koine. Yiush of itself alone is not koine. You have to know, we saw and we will see, there are opinions, we're not la'alocho, so I mentioned them less, that Yiush alone is koine. Just after Yiush, if it's Yiush in the hands of the Gazlan, I can do whatever I want. Our Brisa does not believe that. Umeikara, at the beginning, when it came to the hands of the one who got it from the thieves, Beisura Osaliyode, it came into his hands, Beiser. What do I mean, Beiser? In a forbidden way. Why? Oh, according to Rashi, what we have to say is as follows. In the hands of the Gazlonim, Yiush took place, but that's not enough. What else do we need besides Yiush? Shinu Reshus. After Yiush, change of hands. Now, Mikar, when it was changed into my hands, how was it done? Beisu, meaning I'm the one who created by taking it from the Ganovim. I'm the one who created the situation of Shinui Reshus. So it's true that I created the matzav that post facto, it became mutter. But who created that situation? You. You shouldn't have taken it from the Gazlan. You should have told the Gazlan, keep the donkey, and I don't want to take it. The Gazlan stole your donkey. Don't take the other one. And you didn't. So according to our Mishnah, that's okay, but the Mishnah says, keep the donkey. La'achar ma'aser maybe didn't act right, but you did what you did. Now you're okay. Now it's clean. It's been through the bleach. That's it. It was Yiush and Shinui Reshus. The Brisa says, no. You created that bleaching of the Gneva, that laundering of the Gneva, and therefore you're not allowed to use it. Yeah, give it back to the original owner. That's the way Mechavrus and I explained it to explain Rashi. There are other explanations which I will not go into right now. And first we have to see the other Brisa. No phones, please. Yeah, Vika Damri, and another take on the Brisa that I would say that's like a second Brisa, different Brisa. Im bolehachzir, that Brisa we're seeing now says as follows: if he wants to give back, he wants to give back. He wants to be a chosid, not with a shtreimel. He wants to be extra good. Yachzir lebalim rishonim, which means this Brisa believes more like our Mishnah. No, you don't have to give it to the original owner. You want to be a tzaddik? You don't want to enjoy stolen goods? Don't give it back to the thief. Give it back to the original owner. You have to look at the original owner. Don't say, I don't want stolen goods. No. I'll give it back to the tax collectors. No, they're also thieves. Give it back to the original guy. My time, eh? But why is it that I'm not really mechuyev to give? It's only out of goodwill. Yush kedi kani. This Bryce believes the third concept. A Yiush alone is koine. As we saw in Merube, in the 7th parak, and we'll see later, there's a whole load of Amoraim who believe the Yiush alone is koine. Yiush by itself is good enough. And therefore, since there was Yiush in the hands of the Gazlan, I now can do whatever I want. I miu, however, if he says, I don't want, means I don't want. I don't want money, which is not mine, it feels bad. Pasnisht, I'm a frum Jew, I don't want to have stolen goods, even though they're 100% kosher, but they're originally stolen. Very nice. In that case, you have to give the original owner and not the moiches. You want to be good till the end. So let's summarize. According to Rashi, we have really 3 different options. The Mishnah and the second Brisa believe you can keep it. Why can you keep it? One of 2 reasons. The Mishnah, according to Rashi, said there was Yiush and Shunei Rashus. Now it's in the hands. It's been through Yiush? Yes, tick the box. Where was Miyash in the hands of the Gazlan? Shunei Rashus, where? In my hands. I got it from the Gazlan. Life is good. I can keep it. The second Brisa says, you know you can keep it? Because Yiush alone in the hands of the Gazlan, that's good enough. You don't even need Shunei Rashus. It's even better. You want to give it back? Very nice. The first Brisa argued on both. The first Brisa said, no, Yiush v'Shunei Rashus doesn't smell good. Why? Because you created the Shunei Rashus. You're the one who did it. You created that situation of heter. So you are a little bit partner in crime, even though in your hands it's already kosher, but it shouldn't have come to your hands. And therefore, Yiush v'Shunei Rashus, you should not benefit from that. That's the way Mechavrus and I got it. And at this point, I would continue because I think going to other opinions and other ways, at 10:25, anybody interested in more Iyun, we will go into it and I'd be very happy to. Right now, I do want to get to the Siyum at some point, and I will continue for now. Says the Heilige Gemara. Yep. We're still in the first paragraph of the Mishnah. We're going to touch now on the question of Reb Yaakov. What did we say at the beginning of the Mishnah? We always assume, even without knowing, we strongly assume we're machzik, that the person who's the victim of a real government white-collar criminal or a regular listim is meyash, so I can keep it, v'chule v'chule. Amar Rashi. Says Rashi a qualification of that. Loishanu, that is only true, ela listim oived kechovim. That is true only if the listim was a goy. The listim is a goy, you for sure gave up. Go argue with the goy. Can you argue with Abdullah Rahman Mahmur? No, you can't argue with him. And therefore, the person who you assume was miyash, I have a listim is soil. But if the thief was a Jew, then then there is no automatically assumed Yiush. There's no Yiush necessarily. Maybe, but not necessarily so. Soval, the victim, thinks, Lamocho nakitna lebedina. Tomorrow I'm going to take him to Beis Din and I'll sort it out with him. And I have Eidim maybe. I have ways to prove that this Jew can be taken to Beis Din. I'll prove him wrong and I'll take it. So unless we know that it was miyash, we do not assume he was miyash. You have to understand the difference. Yeah, we don't automatically assume by default that if the Gazlan was a Jew, then I'm miyash. Only if the Gazlan, his name was Mahmud Mahmoudi. Now, Maskif Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is now attacking Rav Ashi. By the way, it could be it's Rav Asi, not Rav Ashi, because Rav Yosef and Rav Ashi didn't live the same generation. So it's probably Rav Asi. Rav Yosef attacks Rav Asi and says, Adraba, on the contrary, Ipcha Mistabra, on the contrary, Akum, the Akum, it's easier to get money out of a goy than to get money out of a Jew. Oh, why? Akum, the Daini Begiti, the Akum, their dinim are much harsher than ours. The Goyish Beis Din is harsher than the Jewish Beis Din. First of all, they hit them right at the beginning. If he doesn't pay straight away, they start smacking him and lashing him. And also, they don't need so many evidences like us, Goyim, like today. Maybe they don't hit in the West, but they rely on circumstantial evidence. And we don't. We need real Eidim, right? So it's much easier to get money out of the hands of Mr. Mackenzie. So lo miyash, but he's not miyash there. That's why he's not miyash. He believes he'll go to the Goyish court, and since we're not talking here about Nazis, now these people are going, but they would listen to a Jew. If a Jew would claim against the Goy, they would listen to him, and Adrabah, they will punish the goy so severely, he'll give the money back to the Jew ASAP. He doesn't want to be lashed. But Israel, but if the thief is Israel, came in the Amri Meimar, because in our basin we talk, we're being very nice and we don't hit anybody, and also we only rely on 2 Eidim, so it's much, much harder to get the money out of a Yid. Meyash. So we assume by Yid, on the contrary, Dafka, if the Ganav was a Jew, then you meyash even more. Ella. So therefore, we believe Rav Yosef, who accepted Rav Yosef's take that really it's harder to get money from a Jew than from a Goy, Bigzela. Therefore, Itmar, if you want to pin the sentence of Rav Asi on any part of the Mishnah, a Seifa Itmar, and soon you'll see how all the questions also that we had before are answered. Really, what Rav Asi said, the difference between a Jew and a Goy goes on the Seifa. What did we learn in the Seifa? As I pointed out before, I want to pause for a second and just explain what's going on in the Mishnah, which Yaakov pointed out before too. In the ratio of the Mishnah, we say, we assume without knowing, we assume already automatically by default that the person was miyash. In the Seifa, the Mishnah sang a different song. In the Seifa said, im nisyashu, only if I know they were miyash. Only then, if I know and I heard, oy, then I can take the item. What's the difference? Now, everything will be answered. The statement of Rav Asi, you should learn it on the Seifa, which means, let's listen to this. A person who says from a goy, like a guys, the army, or from stam robbers, im nisyashu bailim in stoma loy. Only if I know that they're miyash, then yes, stoma. The default automatic assumed matzav is no. We're talking in the Sefer about a nice gazlan whom we don't assume will, that the person, the victim is miyash. Now everything makes sense. Lo yishona lo akum. A goy, if that robber is a goy, mishum dedaini begiti, because they're dying begiti, because their dinim are very harsh and very stark and very quick to draw conclusion. Mimela, in the Seifa, if it's Mackenzie who stole from me, then what? Then I'm not automatically miyash. Unless I was heard, then nobody can argue with the reality. I was miyash. I'm a coward. I'm miyash right away. I'm a negative guy. But lemaise, we don't assume that a goy shegazlan right away. It's not the assumption that the person is miyash. They'll take him to the federal court in New York. I have a listim Israel, but a listim who's a Jew. Given the Amri Meimar, because the Jewish court, the Beis Din are way, now I wouldn't say too nice, but they're very nice to people, and there's a whole legal procedure, and there's no hitting and no violence, and therefore it's harder to retrieve your money from your fellow Jew Ganev than miyash. Then the assumption is miyash right away in the Seifa. So let's summarize. The Reisha said, we assume that the Gzela is miyash, that the Nigzal is miyash. Always, without even hearing. What kind of thief was in the Reisha? Jewish. You got it. Got it, man. He was Jewish. From a Jewish guy, I know this whole legal procedure. We behave like mentioned. We need to aid him, and he's not going to be hit. It's more westernized than the olden day Babylonian thing. But the Seifa talks about a goy. From a goy, we say what? We don't assume he's miyash. No, he's a goy. I'll very easily sue him and very easily get money out of him, extract the money. Therefore, in that case, in the Seifa, unless you heard that the person says, vai, Yiush, I'm not never see it again. I gave up giving hope. I gave up hope. Then what? Then, unless we heard that, we assume it's not miyash, because from the Goyish court, it's easy to take money. Nan Hosom. Now we're going to see another quote from a Mishnah. And as I promised you before, there are opinions who hold that Yiush alone is koine. I just want to summarize again. This is a good place to stop. And also, not everybody in the room was here when we learned Merubah. I want to explain the logic. We're also about to finish the Masechta at some point soon. The logic of Yiush, Rishon, and Rishus, I just wanted to understand something. When a person lost an object, what do we say? The object is out of his hands. It's lost, right? He can't find it. B, there's Yiush. Once is change of location and plus Yiush, that's good enough for me to take it. Once he's miyash, I don't have to give it back to him. If I know he was miyash, I don't have to give it back to him. True. What about a ganev? The ganev, we need more, a longer procedure. And I'll explain to you according to explanation of a Bluchon Basselman, the Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim. The story is like this. When a Gazlan got it out of the hands of the owner or the ganev, that's a kinyan. He did Mashicha, Hagbah, that's physically and halachically out of the hands of the original owner. However, he's still looking for it. Looking. It's still, according to some Amiroim, yes, look in his hands because he's still looking for it. He didn't give up on it. Once he gave up hope, that's it. He gave up hope. Some Amiroim would say, once he gave up hope, no problem. Yeah, then it belongs to the Ganev. However, other people, of course, the Ganev will have to pay cash. The Ganev will have to pay cash, but the item is his. Most Amiroim argue and say no. The Torah says, "V'heshav esegzela asher gazal." As opposed to Aveda, here you're a criminal, mister. And you have a chiyuv, an ongoing chiyuv that's screaming at you from the corner, "V'heshiv, you have to give back, you have to give back, you have to give back." And that's impeding you from being the owner, even after use. Once the item is different, there was shinui. What kind of shinui? Either different domain, or the planks of wood became a beautiful chair, or the little lamp became a beautiful big ram. Shinu Shem, Shinu Ashut, Shinu something. It's not the same item. Once it's not the same item, I don't have to return it anymore. The Heshiv is Gzela Asher Gozal Kein Gozal. That's not the Gzela Asher Gozal, it's a new Gzela. Therefore, now all the Ganev has to do is pay the original owner. Everyone agrees, and he doesn't have to give the original item. And if I'm the one who bought it from the Ganev, although I may not be a nice guy, and maybe it's Lifnei Iver, and I shouldn't do it, but the Eved, it's okay, according to our Mishnah. Why? Because at the end of the day, there was Mashicha from the Gazlan, Yiush, and Shini Rashus. So we ticked all the boxes. Now it can stay by the hands of the one who bought from the thief, according to our Mishnah. Although obviously it's better to try and find the original owner, and it's better not to deal with Ganovim. Halacha l'mais, it says not to buy from a Ganev. Not to buy from a Ganev, l'chatchila, definitely not the thing to do. Yes, Jeffrey? Non-wholesome. Yeah. Non-wholesome. It says in the Mishnah in Kelim as follows. Oirus shel Baal Habais. Oirus shel Baal Habais means a person has a piece of leather that is now nice and cured and ready, but that piece of leather is, like you always see in the pictures, what is it? It's just like one big sheet of leather, okay? Then that person may or may not make something else with it. He has a choice of turning that into shoes or cutting it further and making it into a leather strap, into a belt or a leather bag, or he may leave it like that to be a carpet. I was once in South Africa. Oh, I saw very nice, like a carpet made out of leather, like an animal skin. So now, the Or Shel Baal Habais, what does that have to do with the sugya? Machshava mitamoson. What does that mean? In order for a kli to be susceptible to receive tuma, to be able to receive tuma, it has to be a kli. Something that is raw material would never receive tuma, not susceptible to get tuma, even if it's in the room with a dead man, even if it's a sheretz touched it, a dead toad touched it, or a dead turtle, doesn't make a difference. Lemaisa, as long as it's not a finished product, it's not called a kli, does not accept tuma. However, if Baal Habais decided, oh, look, this piece of leather, hey, I'm not going to make it into shoes. I just want to leave it just the way it is. It's nice. It's a bit raw. It's very cool, very sturdy. And I'm going to keep it as a nice leather piece, leather carpet, rug on my floor. For me, that's called a kli. I decided that's my kli. Machshava metamason, thinking this is my kli, and that's the final stage of production. That means, yes, you're the Baal Habais. It's your right to decide what to do with your leather. And from now on, Mazel Tov, from raw material, just by thought, it turned from raw material into an item, a nice, cool leather rug. The Shel Abdon. What about the Abdan, which is the person producing the what's the names, the leather goods, and he gives people the leather, he sells people leather items. Ein machshava mitamoson. By him, the machshava does not make it tome, which means, let's say the guy is somebody who sells the pieces of leather. He also wants to have his own. So now he also has his own leather stuff. Let's say he decided, wow, I would like to leave that leather piece a bit raw, because that's what it stated before in IKEA, in the catalog of IKEA. It shows such a thing. Their stuff is not as nice. Yeah, so then what? I have to have such a thing. That's the fashion. He decided, that's going to be my rug. But you need money. And also three things, kesef, money, and health. So now if somebody would come to you and say, Mr. Leather Maker, could you take this piece of leather and make shoes out of it? You'll make shoes very nicely. A few thousand shekels. Personally handmade shoes, even more fashionable. Then what? His machshava is never metame, because whatever the producer thinks is never the final thought. Because maybe he'll make something else with it by the customer's request, and therefore it's not metame. It's not yet called the finished product. By the way, this was only a hakdama for the real. Now we're coming to the punchline. Shel gazlan, a gazlan, a person who's a gazlan. What's the difference between gazlan and a ganav? A gazlan does not fear anybody. Unfortunately, not Hashem and not people. A gazlan comes to you with an open face, and he comes and says he doesn't even cover his face with a mask. And what does he say? Money or life. And from some reason, most people, I think, would give the money. Most of us. So then the gazlan, he stole beyodaim. He stole the item without flinching, and now he has the leather. Now the gazlan doesn't know what to do with the leather. He wants to keep the leather as it is, but how do you know? Maybe the original owner will knock on his door, accompanied by the police, and will take it back. How much of an owner is the gazlan is affecting the Tumah V'Tara. A real owner can decide anything, but somebody who's only temporarily having it by him, then he's not considered as real owner, and his thought regarding the leather does make a difference. Says the Mishnah, Shel Gazlan ein machshava metamoson. But the Gazlan, his machshava does not make a difference. You know why? Because the owner is not miyash. And that you have to remember all the time. We're going to discuss it many times. A Gazlan, the machshava is not metame. You're not a real owner, because we assume that the owner still will take you to Beis Din. You know why? Because the person saw your face, even without a gun. A gun is a different guy. The guy just comes to him. He's a thug. He's mamish a pushtak, a bum. And what does he do? He takes it away. I'll take you to Beis Din tomorrow. The Bailim is not Yiush. He knows the face. There were cameras. There were two Eidim. So the owner will take it back from him. Therefore, he's not an owner. Therefore, his thought doesn't make a difference. Now, Shel Ganav. A Ganav is somebody who comes in the middle of the night. 3 o'clock in the morning he came. Nobody knows who he is. Who are you going to call? The Scotland Yard. Who? The FBI? Nobody knows who he is. Machshava metamoson. Since we assumed that the person was miyash already, it was a burglary in the middle of the night. Nobody knows who they are. It's very hard to find out who they are. And Americans who live in Israel find it very disappointing. It should never happen to you. The police comes to someone's house and they do nothing plus 0, minus 0 to even try and find the ganav, as opposed to, I've heard America is better. So this is Israel over here. And what? And the gneva is something not known to me. I cannot take to Beis Din somebody whom I don't know, right? Therefore, I'm miyash. Therefore, his machshava is metame. He's called the real owner of the leather. Even if you didn't get the whole thing with the leather, the main point we want to siphon from here till the end of the sugya is as follows. Carefully listen. Tanakama holds what? From a gazlan, you're not miyash. I saw his face. I am courageous to take him to Beis Din. I'm not miyash. And a ganav, I don't know who is. I can't take to Beis Din, Mr. Didn't leave fingerprints, even if the police tried. No way. So then what? I'm miyash already. Rabbi Shimon argues on Tanakama. Chiluf advorim. Rabbi Shimon says just the opposite, just au contraire, just the other way. Shel gazlan mechshava metamosan. The gazlan, I am scared of the gazlan. The mechshava is metame of the gazlan, meaning the gazlan is an owner, and he can decide what to do with the leather. Why is the gazlan an owner? You know why? Because the people that he steals from, that he robs from, they are miyash. You know where the miyash? Because he has big muscles, and he has connections in the police, and he has all thug of people around him, like the mafia in New York, and nobody does anything. Because he's a scary guy, people are scared of him, and they're miyash. Nobody wants to start with big bad guy. Now, Shel Ganav. Now, the contrary. Shel Ganav ein machshava metamoson. Lefi shalonis yashu abaylim. A Ganav, the person says, I will not give up hope. You know why? Says Rashi, Bachshi. I will mix and I'll stir, which means I will look and look and look until I find out who is. The Ganav is he's a scaredy cat. He's a coward. He came in the middle of the night, the Ganav. I'll look for him and I'll employ a private investigator and I will find out who is. I'm not Miyash. The Kitzer, we have a machlokes here, right? According to Tana Kama, what do we say? And they'll be our companions till the end of this year. So you better get to know them. Our companion is Mr. Ganav, Mr. Gazlan. That's nice chevra. According to Tana Kama, what do we say? Tana Kama believes from a Gazlan, you're not Miyash. I know who is. A Ganav, I am Miyash, because I don't know who is. I can't take him to Beis Din. That's Tana Kama. Rabbi Shimon says, switch around, swap it around, who, and what? A Gazlan, that's a scary guy. The entire town is scared of. He's the town's sheriff, and he steals from everybody. And the Ganav, I look for the Ganav. I'm not scared of him. I'll find out I find out who he is. It's just a matter of technicality until I find him. That's the machlokes between Tanakam and Rabbi Shimon. Yeah, Yaakov. Okay, that's better now. In other words, we goof have a machlokes. Do or don't we assume Gneva, Yiush, Yiush, and also by who? Ganav or Gazlan? Omar Ula. Ula basically says what I already told you, but it's going to be a point of argument. Omar Ula. Machlokes bistam. The only machlokes this is real machlokes in what? Human psychology. Stam means I never heard the real owner of the piece of leather. I never heard what he said, what he didn't say. He lives in Beitar. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything. I don't know. What do we assume is the machlokes, right? Do we assume that people are miyash baganav or bagazlan is machlokes? Aval beyadua. Let's say I actually heard either the person himself or through Adim. I know that the person stolen from actually screamed and shouted, "Oi, I lost my favorite piece of leather. It's stolen, and I gave up hope." Everyone would agree. The Yiush Kani. Oh, did you hear that? Wow. Wait. You shouldn't be so complacent. Basically, Ula wants to tell us Yiush is koine, possibly without shinei reshus or shinei shem shinei this. That's besides the point. But everyone agrees the Yiush is koine. The only question is, do you assume, if you don't know the facts, do you assume Yiush by Ganav or by Gazlan? Depends you ask Reb Shimon or Chachamim. So far, so good. So far, so great. Rabbi Omar, Rabbi is arguing in Ula, taking it a few steps further. He says, "Beyadua nami machloikes." Wow. Even if you know, wow, that the person was miyash, still there's an argument. Wow. In other words, let's say the person says, "Oy balchesel kis, I gave up hope, oy," and what? And let's say, according to Tanakama, we're talking about a Gazlan who say, "No, you didn't really give up hope." We know that what the person said is not real. Sometimes people talk and they don't mean what they say. Talk is cheap. He says, "Oh, vavoy." It doesn't necessarily mean that in his heart that's what he meant. We have an argument, even if the person did express himself, is he really serious about it or not? And Rabbi Shimon would say, if a person, in the case of Ganav, says, "Oh, Vaila, there was a theft, I'll never see it again, I gave up on it," doesn't mean that he signed it on a dotted line by the lawyer, by the court. He's Stam talking. By Ganav, says Rabbi Shimon, it's not really Yiush. You'll find him. That, according to Rabbi, is the machlokes between Ganav and Rabbi Shimon. Even if you heard the Yiush, how do we interpret the words? What kind of halachic status we give to these words? But Rabbi is now telling Rabbi, he's now questioning Rabbi. He says, "Lo tiflu galei de ula." Don't argue on ula. Why? I don't think what you're saying is right. Our very same Mishnah, the leather Mishnah, sounds exactly like ula, not like you. Why? Because look what it says. It says, "Lafi shelo nisyashu abaylim," meaning the Bailim were not miyash. Taime de lo nisyashu abaylim, meaning we don't know that they were miyash, right? Aval nisyashu abaylim areilu shaloi. The Mishnah says they were not miyash. Mashma, if we heard that they were miyash, we can't argue on reality. You, Rabbi, you argue on reality. The Mishnah sounds to be saying that it's because, yeah, get what I'm saying? It's because they were not miyash. We assume they're not miyash as long as we're in the gray area of assumption. But mashma, if we know what's going on, then we can't go against their words, says Ula. Says Abaye defending Ula. Omerlei, no. Says Rabbi, you misunderstood the Mishnah. Anan, I'll tell you how we learn the Mishnah. which means the way I learned the Mishnah, and Tosfos explains, is not changing the words. When I say they were not miyash, when the Mishnah said they were not miyash, you know what it means? Even if they say they were miyash, in their hearts they're not really miyash. Gufa. Of course we're discussing Yiush, yes or no. When our Mishnah said they're not miyash, doesn't mean that you didn't hear the words. It means you don't have an X-ray to the hearts. And even if the person said, people talk a lot of things, you can't really create halacha based on someone's words. Oh, Yiush, oy vavai, what's going to be with me? The world's coming to an end. How many times did you hear people saying, I don't know what, it's the worst day of my life? And then ask, is it really the worst day of your life? No. Now, not everything that everybody says is reality mamish. We chachamim have to define when do we give it halachic status, when we don't. Says Rabbah, a Yiush, according to chachamim, by a gazlan is not Yiush, and according to Reb Shimon ben Ganev is not a Yiush, even if the person said so. So now we have the players on the chess board. Let's repeat again. Let's review again. Let's revise again. What are we saying? Again, according to, now, Ula and Rabbah have their own argument, but let's go back to the original Reb Shimon and Chachamim. Again, don't get confused, by the way, because I saw people getting confused in the past. This is not there are no four sides in this machlokes. These are two layers. There's Reb Shimon and Rabbanan arguing. End of story. And Ula and Rabbah argue on how to explain their argument. Reb Shimon and Chachamim are Tanoim. Ula and Rabbah are Amaroim. And Amaroim argue on the meaning of the Tanoim. It's not four people here. There are two and two. Yeah? Now, it's not. So let's revise. According to Tana Kama, if the person was a gazlan, the one who comes with his open face and everyone's scared of him, says Tana Kama, no Yiush. Because I know who he is. I'll take him to Beis Din. I'll fight. Justice to the town. Justice to Kushkushville. Out with that sheriff. And if it's a Ganav, what can I do? I don't know who he is. I don't have my whole life to search for him. I'm Meyash. That's on common. Reb Shimon zogt was zogt Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon says, Afuch, the big strong guy. Most people would probably be Meyash. Not everyone here is, the justice fighter. I'm scared of him. I'll take him to court. You're not going to be the day after you take him to court. There'll be a bomb under your car or your bed. I'm not sure. Yeah, machlokes mafiosos. So then you don't take Luciano to court, even if he's Jewish. Now, and if it's a Ghana, I'll find him. He's a scaredy guy. He's a scaredy cat. I'll take him I'll find out. Yes, I'll do my investigation. That's Reb Shimon. I'm not Meyash automatically. That's the common Reb Shimon with the different explanations. Tanan. Yeah, good. Says our Mishnah. And now let's see how our Mishnah of the tax collectors with their donkeys, how exactly that fits into the different opinions. The Ganav. No, Ganav. He comes in the middle of the night. No, not. And if yes, I made a big mistake. A Ganav is a scaredy cat. A Ganav comes 3 o'clock in the morning and makes sure nobody sees him. Oh, I'll take him to court. Tanan, he's not a kind of guy who puts a bomb under. He's a drug addict, whatever. He wants the money very quickly. He's not the kind of guy who's connected to the big guy in Manhattan and puts a bomb under your Tanan, not l'machsim chamoyroi, not l'machsim chamoyroi, v'chulei. What did we say about the moichsim? After all said and done, you can keep it, right? The moichsim, what are they? Oh, that's a question. What are they moichsim? So now, what? Wait. Not Reb Shimon, just define, please. Give me a dictionary definition. Right. The moichsim are thugs. The moichsim are illegal, in inverted commas. They're not scared. No, we're the legal guys. You have to pay your taxes. You people don't pay taxes and you go to the army, And they tell you, and really they're lying. The Bituach Leumi, they lie to your face, but they're legal. They're not scared. So they're gazlonim. And who are ganovim? If you remember, I told you the beginning of the Mishnah. What does the beginning of the Mishnah say? There are two cases, moichsin and listim. So moichsim are gazlonim with open face. They're overt. They're out of the closet gazlonim. They're proud of being gazlonim. And the Ganav is the second guy mentioned in the Mishnah, not in the second brisa. It's the first guy. It's the first part of the Mishnah, the Reisha. The Gazlan is the Ganav is the listim. So there are two people, Gazlonim and Ganovim. Both are mentioned together in one go, and that's not a good thing. Why? Money. Frag the Gemara. who is the Tana who endorses our Mishnah, and the Mishnah mentions both Ganovim and Gazlanim, and the Mishnah said that you're Miyash, right? We always assume that there was Yiush. Rabbanon, Kasha Gazlan. If it's Rabbanon, then it's difficult with Gazlan. Why are you telling me that the Moiches is somebody that I'm not going to fight? I will fight him. He's an illegal Gazlan. He's an illegal tax collector. I'll prove his, how do you call it? I'll prove his, corruption to the police, to the courts, and I'm okay, according to the Kama. Why are you saying it's Miyash? Rab Shimon, Kasha Ganev. According to Rab Shimon, why are you saying that the Ganev is Miyash? I'll find the Ganev, says Rab Shimon. It's very funny. Both Gazlan and Ganev, both of them have Yiush. How could that be, right? It doesn't fit anybody's terms. Bishlama. Now we're going down to the trickling down to the Mechlokas HaMoiroim on the Mechlokas Tanoim. Bishlama le'ula. According to Ula, I have an answer. The Omer beyadua kani. What did Ula say? Ula said that this whole Mechlokas is only what do we assume, but beyadua. If I actually know, I actually heard that the guy says, "Oy oy oy, vayla lechesron kisa meyash," then I'm always koiner. Then very good. Hachanami beyadua v'divrei hakol. Beautiful, beautiful. If you say that I heard that in the Reisha, unlike what we said before, by the way, if we say that in the Reisha, people know that he actually said oy vay voyli, everyone agrees you don't argue in reality. That's Ula. Divrei hakol, fakir. The Mishnah is good with everybody. Both in the Kama and Rab Shimon. Everybody would say that, beautiful, good, Divrei hakol, yes. There was a Ganev and Gazlan or my grandmother's shoes, I don't care what. If you know that there was Yiush, Yiush works. According to Rabbah, it's much worse. According to Rabbah went much further. What did Rabbah say? That even if I know there was Yiush, I don't interpret it as Yiush. I say no. The rabbi, the dean, the halacha says no. This is not called real Yiush. Then Homani, then who'd follow such a Mishnah? Because even if you know he was Miyash, you don't always treat it that way. The Lo Rabbanon v'Lo Rab Shimon. Then it can't be neither Rabbanon nor Rab Shimon. Why? Because our Mishnah lumped everyone together. The Moiches, who's an open-faced guy, and the Ganev, who's what? We assume the listim is a general name. We assume the listim is the guy who comes in the middle of the night. Hey, excuse me. And in both cases, you have Yiush. That cannot be. Because at least in one of them, either Rabbanon or Rab Shimon would say that it's not called Yiush, even if it was Miyash verbally. Boom, boom, boom. Question on Rabbah. Very strong question. Answers the Gemara, Belistim Mizuyon v'Rab Shimoni. There's a third guy. He's an armed robber. And that's Rab Shimon, which means as follows. The armed robber, as you know, he comes what? He comes with a covered face and a gun. You have a robber who, there are two types of non-ganovim. There are two types of robbers who come and they are in your face. However, no part of the Mishnah spoke about Ganev. I'm restarting. We want to say now that the Mishnah follows Rab Shimon. I'm sorry, I'm restarting. I started from the wrong direction. Rewind for like 30 seconds ago. Yeah. According to Rab Shimon, our Mishnah is good. A Mishnah is a Rab Shimon follower. He's a like Rab Shimon, good with Rab Shimon. He gave Rab Shimon a like and a very nice following on Rab Shimon. What does Rab Shimon say? A Ganev, you never miyash from a Ganev. So why did the Mishnah speak about two people and both of them two types of Ganovim where there is Yiush? How could that be? Says the Mishnah, the first guy is a Moiches, he's a Gazlan, open face, and everyone's scared of him. The second guy, the second guy comes with a gun. He doesn't come with an open face, but he comes with a gun. Although his face is covered, but he's a dangerous guy. You know why? Because he comes and he really threatened you with a gun or with a sword or with a knife. That kind of guy, Reb Shimon says, I'm scared of him. I will not take him to Beis Din. Even if I reveal his identity, he's not so scared. He has a gun in his hand. Mimela says, Reb Shimon, very nice. Our Mishnah spoke about two scary, childish term, two frightening ganovim, Gazlan A, Gazlan B. With them, I don't mess up with them. And that's why there's Yiush. But there's a third guy who's not mentioned in the Mishnah. That's scaredy cat Ganav, who is just, a troubled teen. And he came into the house and he's scared as much as you're scared. and him I would take to Beis Din, and by him there's no Yiush, and that's Reb Shimon. Frag the Gemara, Yehochi, wait a second. If you want to tell me that the Mishnah spoke about two different Gazlanim, I knew Gazlan. So why did the Mishnah have to repeat the same thing twice? Why did the Mishnah have to speak about Moiches and then Gazlan? The both Gazlanim. Why did the Mishnah have to repeat itself? Bishlama for Gazlan and Ganav, the two different types. But why did you have to say? Why did you have to mention Gazlan and again a Gazlan with a knife? Trei Gavni Gazlan, says the Gemara. There are two types of Gazlanim. I already gave you the answer before. There are two types of Gazlanim. One of them is so not scared of anybody. Remember that? The Gazlan who's openly stealing from people. He goes in the middle of the street. It's a small town and he owns the town. And he steals right, left, and center, not scared. That's number one. That's a moiches. He's legal, quote unquote. And what about the second guy? There's another kind of Gazlan who is, yes, with an armed. He's armed. And however, he's like covered. Or by the way, it's not always covered face. Sometimes he hides in a cave. He hides in a cave, he comes with a gun and goes back to his cave. So he's not as open as the Gazlan. Nevertheless, I don't want to mess up with him either. So that's a chiddush. Toshma, now comes, the Gemara is going to say something very similar now. What we just saw in the past 5 minutes is going to more or less repeat itself now. Toshma, a different brisa that says a similar thing. A Ganav, they're Gazlan, red alert. Both Ganav, the one who comes in the middle of the night, and the Gazlan who openly steals from anybody in the bank everywhere, they're Anas. Anas is a guy who does Hamas. I don't mean the terror group, you know it's Hamas. He forces you to sell. Yeah, he pays. He's a decent guy, but he pays you. He has two things in his hands, a gun and $1,000. Such a decent guy. You don't want to sell the beautiful $1,000 gift your wife gave you for your past birthday. She did, right? The £1,000 gift your wife gives you, and it's sentimental value, and you don't want to say goodbye to it, and he wants that gift, and he says the money or the beautiful gift or life, but he pays you the $1,000, yeah, or pounds, yeah. So that's what? That's a chamsan. That's an anas. He forces you. Ekdesh and hekdesh. Once it's in their hands, we assume that they're the owners. Since they're owners, Mimele, he can be makdish to Beis HaMikdash, that item he stole from you, Betrumos and Truma, Masros and Meiser. If they stole agricultural goods, they can take Truma and Meiser. Bekitzer, we're not going to questions now of Mitzvah Bababer and all that, but Lemeiser, they're called owners. You see, both Ganav and Gazlan are owners. Are they owners? Why they became such choshev owners, these nice guys? Money. Who's exactly talking here in the Mishnah? Who's the author of the Mishnah? Rabbanon Kasha Gazlan. According to Rabbanon, why do you say that the Gazlan is the owner? Rabbanon says, I'm not miyash if a Gazlan stole from me. That's not Rabbanon. Reb Shimon Kasha Ganav. If you follow Reb Shimon, Ganav does make sense. Reb Shimon says that the Ganav who's a coward, I will look for him and I will find him and I won't kill him. I'll sue him. Yeah. If so, but I'm not miyash from a Ganav, so why is the Ganav an owner? I was never miyash according to Reb Shimon. And again, it's very good to do chazara. According to Ula, the question is not as bad. Why? Ula interpreted the machlokas of Shimon Rabbanon, the Omar beyadu akani. According to Ula, the only machlokas is if we don't know what's the assumption according to the human psychology of Chazal. But beyadu akani. If I actually heard in my own ears, Bailal Chesron Kis, either Ganav or Gazlan, it's Yiush. You can't fight the reality. Guys, miyash. According to Ula, it's very nice. Our Mishnah or a brisa that lumped together Gazlan and Ganav, very good. Ganav and Gazlan, what about them? Both of them, in case the person was miyash, Chazal don't fight reality. He was miyash. We don't know better than him what he feels. Bevakasha. That's called Yiush and Gendik. And now the Ganav can be makdish and do whatever he wants with the item. According to Rabbah, the Omer beyadua nami machloikes. According to Rabbah, that says the machloikes is also beyadua. What does it mean beyadua? Machloikes is even if he actually said Baila lechesron kis, we interpret his words differently, and we don't believe he's Yiush, even though he expressed Yiush. Then money. Then who's this brisa following? Because the Reb Shimon and Chachamim Lufi Rabbah stick to the gun strongly. That according to Reb Shimon, a Gazlan, a Ganav is never Yiush. and Chachamim Gazlan is never Yiush. Then money, Laura Bon of Laura Shimon. Then you have a Mishnah, weird brisa, both Ganav and Gazlan are Yiush. How could that be? Hachonami, same answer, tranquilo. Hachonami, here we answer just like we answered before. There's a third guy who comes to the rescue. Super Gazlan comes to the rescue. Belisti Mizuyon. It's Listi Mizuyon Rab Shimoni. It's an armed robber. It's Gazlan number 2. Rab Shimon is the one who believes from a Gazlan Yiush. You're scared of the Gazlan. He's above the law, or so he thinks. He's going to put a bomb under your car. He's your son's yeshiva, chas v'shalom. What's going to be with him? Yiush. Why are the 2 people mentioned? No. Gazlan number. Yachi Ainu Gazlan. If so, the Gemara will ask the question better than me. Well, why are you mentioning the same Gazlan twice? Trei Gavmi Gazlan. The Mishnah only spoke about scary people that you will never take to Beis Din. However, there are 2 types of those people. One of them is completely open, completely not scared of anybody, and nobody dares to take him to Beis Din. And the second guy is a Listi Mizuyan who is a little bit scared, so he makes an armed robbery and he quickly runs back to his cave, which is, by the way, I'm not inventing stories. That's what the Gemara said, I think, around Daf Nun Zayin. That's how we defined it, yeah? And Mimela, both of them are called Gazlanim, that people are scared of. And according to Reb Shimon, there is Yiush because you're frightened of them. And in those cases, there's Yiush, and now the Gazlan is the owner. Now, the guy who pays, you also don't take to Beis Din. And you don't take him to Beis Din either. He's also scary. The guy who pays actually is mentioned with them, and thank you for the reminder, Jeff. No, he's not. No, of course, Jeff. No, the Brisa mentioned 3 people. Actually, it's good that you close the circle here. The Brisa said there are 3 people that I am miyash, and therefore they are the owners. Who is they? Ganav number 1, who is an open mamish Ganav. It's not a Ganav like we think a Ganav in the middle of the night. He's a Ganav who is a little bit scared, so comes with his face covered. He doesn't want to mess up with the law. Covered face. He lives in a hiding. He lives in a basement in a neighborhood in New York. He's not so openly there, but even him, I don't mess up with him. Guy number 2, Gazlan, open face. He steals from everybody in the middle of the street. Nobody's scared of him. The Anas, Jeffrey, the Anas is the guy who comes with an open face, but he pays you and he steals and he pays. He forces you to sell, and he's also not scared, and I'm scared of him. He's also a scary guy. He comes with a gun. He forces you. He comes with his he comes accompanied with his friend, 2 gorillas, 2 they look like, I don't know, NBA plus wrestlers plus I don't know, from the streets of, I don't know, politically incorrect, certain neighborhoods. You're scared to start with him. Iboy Sema, one more line. We're closing. What's going on here? No, we have 2 dots. The Iboy Sema, another, and that's going to be the opening for all new Vista for next week. Another alternative chat. Homes Nisa Rebbe. Our Mishnah that we just saw follows Rebbe. Mazel Tov, there's a third opinion, Rebbe, but it's not confusing. The Tanya Rebbe Omer Ganev Ke Gazlan. Rebbe says, as opposed to Chachamim, as opposed to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that they're both what? They're both differentiated between Ganev or Gazlan. You have to choose between your best boy. He says, no, both of them. V'kaimalan Ke Gazlan Reb Shimon. He believes that just like Reb Shimon, Gazlan is Yiush. Rebbe is the third opinion, easy one. What does it say? Both Ganev and Gazlan are like the Gazlan and Reb Shimon that you're miyash. Very good. So he's the author of the Brisa. Ganev Yiush, Gazlan Yiush, Anis Yiush, Prince Abela Yiush. No, he had his finger first. I'm sorry. Have a good day.